The Nyaya Sutras of Gautama are the fundamental foundation of logic in the entire world, in the history of humanity. Gautama was born in a city in Bihar, Magadha, and he lived later on the banks of Godavari river, and that's how Godavari got the name Gautami. And most of us do not know that logic, which is the foundation of not only mathematics but also computer science, was originated by Gautama in India and not anywhere else. So this text is the Nyaya Sutras of Gautama, which is of very great antiquity, whose techniques have been applied in Vaisheshika. He must be before Kannada, for all we know. So what is the objective of Nyaya Darshana? Tarka Shastra is also known as Tarka Shastra or Nyaya Shastra, which is basically logic, analytical methodology. It is also called as Anvikshaki, that is microscopic analysis of any topic. So if you want to analyze any topic, what are the ingredients of such an analysis? So those padartha, Nyaya Padarthas are defined here in the first sutra of the chapter 1. Pramana, Prameya, Samshaya, Prayojana, Drishtanta, Siddhanta, Avayava, Tarka, Nirnaya, Vada, Jalpa, Vitanda, Hetvabhasa, Chala, Jati, Nigraha, Sthananam, Tattvajnanad, Nishresadigamaha. So by understanding all these different types of objects within the Nyaya Darshana, you can achieve Nishresa or liberation or moksha. So what is moksha? Dukkha janma pravritti dosha mithyajnananam uttarottara apaye tadanantara apayat apavargaha. Pain, birth, activity, faults, misapprehension, on the successive annihilation of these in the reverse order, there follows release, moksha. Moksha will come by conquering misapprehension based on faults, which are on activities based on birth and pain. Pratyakshanumana, Opamana, Shabda, Pramanani. So among these Nyaya Padarthas, Pramana being the first one, Pramana is nothing but the proof or valid knowledge, method of acquiring, epistemology, acquisition of valid knowledge, and that is possible according to Nyaya Darshana in 4 ways. That is Pratyaksha, direct observation, Anumana, which is inference, and Upamana, which is example or comparison, and finally Shabda Pramana, which is the referential knowledge taken from, or it is also known as Aptavakya. So Indriyartha Sannikarshotpannam Jnanam Avyapadeshyam Avyabhichari Vyavasayatmakam Pratyaksham. What is Pratyaksham? That Pratyaksha is a direct perception, is the knowledge which is generated by direct observations using any of the 5 senses, and it is non-contradictory and not contaminated. Perception is that knowledge which arises from the contact of a sense with its object and which is determinate, unavailable and non-erratic. That means the observation should be correct, it should be unchallengeable, and it should be definite. Such a knowledge observed by sensory perception is valid knowledge, and it has its own limitations. Pratyaksha Pramana has its own limitations. Like according to Pratyaksha Pramana, moon appears as a poppet size, which is what the eyes can see. But by Anumana Pramana, we know that moon is not of poppet size, it is like a part of earth, whole of earth, one part of it is like moon. So Anumana Pramana will come into picture when Pratyaksha Pramana fails to
explain the
yes. Athatat Purvakam Trividhanumanam Purvachhedatmanam Drishtincha. So Anumana is of 3 types, and Prasiddha Sadharmyat Sadhya Sadhanam Upamanam. Upamanam is to compare some unknown object with a well-known object. Similarities like a female's face can be compared with moon, Chandramukhi. So it doesn't mean it is exactly like moon, but some commonality is there. So Aptopadesha Shabdaha. What is Shabda Pramana? Is Aptavakya. Apta means a reliable person, a trustworthy person, a well-wisher who will not deliberately cheat. and who will not mislead. Such a person, when he makes a statement, it has to be taken as valid. Of course, it may not be always valid, and only for topics which cannot be approached through Pratyaksha and Anumana, the Aptavakya Shabda Pramana will come into picture, like existence of God, existence of soul, or what is there somewhere which you have never been, what is there behind Himalayas, what is there on Kailas Parvatam, nobody knows. So whatever somebody says, you have no choice but to accept. Similarly, when you go to a doctor, if the doctor says you have jaundice, or if he says you have acidity, you have to accept, because you don't know whether you have acidity or you have it, because you have to go by the Aptavakya. Swadvividho drishta adrishtatvat. So even Aptavakya is of two types, drishta and adrishta. Atma sarirendriya ardha buddhi mana pravritti dosha pretya bhava phala dukha pavargastu prameyam. So what are the objects of pramana? Pramana is means of valid knowledge, but that means of valid knowledge is about some object, and that object could be the self, or it could be the body, atma, sharira, indriyardha. The objects which are observed by the senses, it could be through buddhi or manas, pravritti, dosha, pratyava. All these are possible objects. If you want to analyze the nature of any of these objects, you have to use the pramanas. These are all prameyas. And ichha, dvesha, prayatna, sukha, dukkha, jnanani, atmano lingam. And whether self, atma exists or not, can be proved by the fact that we have the desires, we have hatred, we have effort, we have pleasure and pain, and we have knowledge. Who is getting all these experiences? That entity is called Atma. Cheshtendriyardhasviraha shariram. The activities which are coming are due to the body. So body is defined as the site of gesture, senses and sentiments. Ghrana, rasana, chakshus, tvaksrotrani, indriyani, bhutebhyaha. Nose, tongue, eyes, skin and ear are the senses produced from the elements. Prithivyaapastejo vayurakashamita bhutani. So these elements, Prithivyaapastejo vayurakasha, 5 elements, they produce these 5 senses in the body. That's what he is saying. Our opposite is also true. Because you have 5 senses, you are able to observe 5 Panchabhutas, otherwise you will not be able to observe. Like for example, some animals don't have eyes. Like a snake doesn't have eyes, so it cannot see light, rupa and all that thing. So because man has all the 5 senses, he can see the Panchabhutas experience. Gandha, rasa, sparsha, shabdaha, prithivya, gunaha, tadardhaha. So the characteristics of Prithvi are Gandha, Rupa, Rasa, Sparsha and Shabda. And Buddhi, Upalakshita, Jnana, Mityanardha, Antram. Intellect is apprehension and knowledge. These are not different from one. What is intellect? Apprehension or knowledge? They are the same. What is the proof of existence of mind? Yogapajnana vanpattihi manaso lingam. That is, the mark of the mind is that do not arise in the mere acts of knowledge at a time, one at a time. Mind can observe only one thought, one knowledge at one time, whereas buddhi can do many. So there are some Ashtavadhanis who can do 8 at a time, Shatavadhanis can do 100 at a time. But normal average person, only one thing I can do at a time. Pravrittihi Vagyuti Sarira Arambhaiti. Activity is that which makes the voice, mind and body begin their action. Pravritti or activity is to start the action of the body and the mind and the senses. Pravartana lakshana dosha. The faults are the characteristics of causing activity. Punarutpatti prayatya bhavaha. Transmigration means rebirth. What is punarutpatti? That is rebirth. Pravritti dosha janitordha phalam. Badhana lakshanam dukkham. What is dukkham? We all know what is dukkha, but he is still defining badhana lakshana. Badha lakshana dukkha. Tad atyanta vimokshaha apavargaha. The highest maximum release from all such pains is known as moksha. Samana aneka dharmotpattehe vipratipattehe upalabdha Visheshapeksho vimarsha samshaya. What is doubt? Doubt is also defined is a conflicting judgment about the precise character of an object without having either a decision this way or that way. So you can see that in the entire Western world, nobody has defined what is doubt. Here he is explaining what is doubt also. And What is prayojanam? Yamardham adhikritya pravartate tat prayojanam. For which purpose you are taking up some activity, that is prayojanam. Lokika parikshakanam yasminnardhe buddhimam cha drishtantaha. What is example? Drishtanta is what is similar and well known to everybody can be compared to what is unknown on a particular object. Tantra adhikaram siddhantaha. What is siddhanta? An established tenet or dogma, resting on the authority of a certain school, hypothesis or implication. Either the siddhanta can be based on an implication, or it can be based on an existing school of thought, or it can be an hypothesis. Sarvatantra, Pratitantra, Adhikara, the tenet is of 4 kinds. We have 4 different types of tenets. That is self dogma of all the schools everybody is accepting, or a dogma which only one school of thought will accept, or a hypothetical dogma, if accepted, leads to the acceptance of another tenet, and an implied dogma is a tenet which is not explicitly declared as such, but when it follows from the examination of particulars concerning it. Pratijna, Hetu, Udaharana, Avayava. What are the Avayavas? Pratijna, Hetu, Udaharana, Apanaya, Nigamana. The proposition, reason, example, application, conclusion. So any discussion or debate will have all these Avayavas. Proposition. And what is proposition? Sadhya nirdesha pratijna. A proposition is a declaration of what is to be established. What is that you are trying to achieve in that process of debate or discussion. Udaharana sadharmya hetu. What is hetu? The reason is the means for establishing what is to be established through the homogeneous or affirmative character of the example. Tadha vaidharmyat. Similarly, through the heterogeneous or negative character of that example. Sadhya sadharmyat umhavashi drishtanta. What is udaharanam? A homogeneous or affirmative example is a familiar instance which is known to possess the property to be established. Tad viparayadva viparitam, and or the opposite. And udaharana apekshat yudravasamharata dhetu sadhanasya upanayah. Application of winding up. Upanayanam is finishing, and the winding up is the reference to the example of what is to be established as being established or not established. You started with a pratijna, you went through a process of debate or discussion, finally you are reaching a final stage before conclusion, whether you have reached conclusion or not. So finally the conclusion itself is Nigamanam, Hetvapadesha Pratijnaya Punarvachanam. Conclusion is the restating of the original proposition after the reason has been mentioned. Avijnata Tattvardhe Karanavapattihi Tattvajnanardha Tarkaha. What is confutation or tarka? It is carried on the first ascertaining real character of a thing which is the character is not known, and reasoning which reveals the character by showing the absurdity of all contrary characters. So all these techniques have been utilized in the ancient Indian tradition of knowledge of Shastrarthas, debates and discussions and arguments, based on which the scholars like Adi Shankaracharya could defeat their opponents on the theories of the ultimate reality in Buddhism or Jainism or in other schools like Lokayata, Charvaka, and establish Advaita as the final tenet, Advaita Siddhanta, and therefore he was declared as Jagat Guru at that time at Kashmir.
That's why this is a Astika Darshana. Nyayika Darshana is
Nyayika Astika Darshana, it is indirectly upholding the existence of God. But it has been used by everybody, Nastikas also. It is not. It is the other way around. Adi Shankaracharya used Nyaya to defeat the Buddhists. Otherwise, Buddhists were most logical. Before getting defeated, they followed a very thorough logical procedure. By proposing Mayavada, he could defeat the Sunyavada of Buddhists. It's a very difficult abstract thing. In fact, if you want to understand what is Mayavada, Maya's definition, it is given in one sloka. Sannapya asannap bhayatmikano, Binnapya binnapi bhayatmikano, Sangapya nangapi bhayatmikano, Mahadbhuta anirvachaniya Maya. You cannot say Maya exists or does not exist, or both. You cannot say whether Maya is same as Brahman or different from Brahman, or both. You cannot say Maya is single one or as parts, or both. then what is that you can say? Means nothing you can say. Mahabhuta Anirvachaniya. It is undefinable. So he defined undefinability in the name of Maya, and he defeated nothingness of the nihilism of his Sunyavada. So it is all very deep logical analysis and argument based on Nyaya Darshana. We just had a brief understanding of the elements in the beginning. It goes on like this, more and more detail. And similarly, he has discussed what is Jalpa, what is Vitanda. Vitanda is arguing without listening to the other side, going and telling only one side all the time. And some of these things which you see in Lok Sabha or in assemblies, we can go on shouting which other. Vada, Jalpa and Vitanda goes on. They will not be acceptable in Charcha, in logical arguments. In logical arguments, the Pratijna has to be there, and then the Nigamanam and then the conclusion. Both have to be shown with proof, otherwise it will not stand. Whereas these people simply shout and simply abuse and attack. And there is a proverb in Sanskrit, Sesham Kopena Purayat. What they are remaining, you finish with your anger. So that is not the valid process of acquisition of knowledge or epistemology. So the Nyaya Darshana is giving the valid process of acquisition of knowledge or epistemology.